Last time on Bad Seed Tech.
Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that sub button, and until next time, stay up.
You're looking for cheap PC games? Check out kingwin.net. Click the link in the description below to help support the channel and never pay full retail again.
Yo, I'm Brian P. You're watching Bad Seed Tech, and you know what? We don't even have time to dick around. We've got a lot of ground to cover today. You're watching part 2 of the Making the Most of Your PC audio series, and today we're talking about interfaces. We're going to start with onboard audio and work our way up to some pretty sweet DAC amp combos. If you haven't watched part 1 yet, I highly suggest checking it out first, and you can click the card up at the top there to watch that now. It's worth saying again that I cannot cover every audio solution out there. I'd rather keep it to things that I've personally tested or owned so I can give you the most honest information possible. And again, if you consider yourself an audiophile, this video is not for you, man. Just go watch some Frasier reruns or something. All right, let's go. So you're probably going to start your PC audio journey with either onboard audio, which is the audio chipset that comes on your motherboard, or a USB headset. And seeing as how we've already covered USB headsets in part 1, I'm going to skip that part. So your onboard audio generally comes in one of two flavors. It's either Realtek or Creative Labs. And the chips range in quality all the way from gross to I bet you can't tell the difference between this and a sound card. You simply do this or this, and you're off to the races. Now, speaking of sound card, don't do this. It's 2018, so just no. I'm not going to go into the myriad of reasons why this is a bad idea. Just take my word for it and don't do it. I have a tendency to just ignore onboard audio and go straight to the good stuff. But if I had to pick, I would probably make sure that my motherboard came with a Realtek chipset. The reason why is that in the past, I've had boards that were both the Creative Core 3D and Realtek. One thing Realtek does is they allow for an optical out to carry real Dolby 5.1 or Dolby DTS signals. And this is really important if you're using an outboard surround system, like a real surround system with the receiver in the whole 9 yards. Core 3D has given you the ability to do this at a hardware level, but in every motherboard I've had that had this chip, they've locked it out at a software level or a driver level and required you to buy a higher end sound card based on the same chipset to get access to those features. I think that's garbage. Now, it's hardly common to see a PC gamer with a full-blown 5.1 or 7.1 surround sound. They're out there, but it's not really common. With the announcement of the 65-inch big format screens that are coming out later this year and wireless peripherals, you may see more PCs kind of shifting into that living room console area. And so these systems might be a little more common going forward. So those of you with like mountains of gold and treasure and nothing to spend it on, it might be right up your alley. The other experience I've had with Creative that really rubs me the wrong way on the boards I've owned is that with my Realtek chipset, I can plug my headphones in one side, my mic in the other side, and get lag-free monitoring or side tone. With Creative, I could monitor the signal, but it introduced a lag that made it unusable. The other thing you may have seen with Creative onboard sound is the idea of op-amp. These are a few different chips that you can plug into the board to color the audio. I've owned a board that had op-amp, but I've never actually used it. It always seemed pretty gimmicky to me, so I didn't think much of it. Feel free to sound off in the comments if this is something you've used before and I'm missing out on something exciting here. The quality of onboard audio has really come a long way, particularly if you spent big bucks on your motherboard. Probably wouldn't be my go-to for music listening exclusively, but for gaming, even made it with a mid-range pair of headphones, it's really not bad at all. Where you're gonna lack is the power on the amp being able to drive some really high-end headphones and the quality of the mic in. That's like the #1 complaint. It's generally either really noisy, really tinny, or really over-processed depending on the flavor. Not necessarily bad for you, it's bad for the squad. Now, if you don't game socially all that often or you're just really not concerned with the quality of the mic in, you could easily get away with just buying a decent pair of headphones and a decent headphone amp and calling it a day.
This is the HyperX Cloud Alpha mic being fed directly to the Realtek onboard, and I've got the mic just like at the corner of my mouth. Notice on the meters that it comes in really hot, pretty much just like rubbing 0 dB the entire time. All right, now you're listening to the Sennheiser Game One going directly into the onboard, seeing really similar levels, so that's going to be controlled by the sound card itself. And I'm going to type a little bit here on the Corsair K70 RGBs. These are Cherry MX speed switches that hopefully you're not hearing too much of in the background. And now the Antlion Modmic 5 hooked directly into the onboard. It is worth noting here that for all the samples that we've done thus far, I have had Realtek's own noise suppression or noise cancellation disabled. So I'm going to let this marinate for a sec. kind of give you an idea what the noise floor is like. I'm going to give you a little typing in the background on the MX speeds, and then we'll do one more test where we run it with the noise reduction on the sound card. All right, now the Modmic 5 going right into the Realtek, but we have the onboard Realtek noise reduction going right now. I'm going to give you a little bit of typing in the background. I think you could tell that on that last test, the noise floor was really high versus the Sennheiser, but it seemed to do a better job with background noise reduction. Let's let this one chill for a sec. And the noise floor is just practically non-existent with this engaged, but be curious to hear how this sounds in the final recording.
The next step up from onboard is going to range anywhere from $75 to $150 roughly. There are a few options that are sub $100, namely the Sound Blaster Omni external, but I've not had the pleasure of using one, so I really can't comment on it. Now, you've got one big question here that's going to influence your purchase decision. Are you going to be gaming exclusively, or do you plan on streaming and or creating content in addition to gaming? Because right now you could go with an external sound card with an amp, or you could go with an audio interface. And there's some big differences between the two, namely the inputs. Most external sound cards are going to limit your mic in to a standard 3.5 millimeter jack. Moving to an audio interface opens up a whole new world of microphones, because now you can connect via XLR, you can use mics that require phantom power, you can go an instrument in directly out of a DI box. There's just a world of flexibility with what you can do input-wise with an interface. And the audio out is no joke on this device either. You're not going to get enough amp power to push some really high impedance headphones, but what you are going to get is a really clean out, because this is geared primarily for studio work. So you're going to get a revealing flat reference EQ. It's a very clean sound. If you don't mind playing your games like that, it's a good alternative to a sound card. But you're not going to get any of the gaming features. So you won't get simulated 7.1, you won't get EQ or presets or footstep mode. All that stuff goes off the table when you're working with an interface. I use the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2, and it retails for about $150. There is a $99 version available, the Focusrite Solo, that only provides one mic or instrument in. I really recommend, if you're going to go this route, to spend the extra $50 up front and get the extra mic in, because it's going to allow you the flexibility to scale later. Like, say you're doing a podcast in your home and you have a guest on, you can simply plug in another mic. You don't have to involve all this extra hardware, or even worse, look at upgrading your interface or buying an additional interface. Now, the one major drawback of this unit, if there is one, is that mics with a 3.5 millimeter input are simply useless here. You have to use something with an XLR. Despite all of the adapters I've purchased and all the ways that I've tried to make my gaming headset mic work with this thing, you simply can't. You do get zero latency side tone or zero latency monitoring if you're using an external broadcast mic in conjunction with your headphones. Of course, you could just go with a USB microphone and forego the idea of an interface altogether, but there's some really attractive mic options out there if you're going to go XLR. And don't be afraid to go used. People's dreams die every day, so don't be worried about getting on Craigslist and finding a killer deal on a used high-end mic that may otherwise be out of your price range.
All right, so right now you are listening to the GXL 3000 from CAD. This is a large diaphragm condenser mic suitable for all kind of broadcast applications, podcast, voiceover work, and the like. This is actually on the low end for condenser mics. It goes for about like $155 new. I actually bought this used for way less than that, like 10 years ago. This is going right into the Focusrite 2i2. I'm about 4 inches away from the microphone right now, and it is being fed with 48 volts of phantom power.
Now, if you don't care about podcasts or streaming or creating content and you just want a game, you could get yourself an external sound card amp combo like the Creative Labs SoundblasterX G5. At roughly $135, this little guy is like the My First DAC amp combo. It's got 24-bit, 192 kilohertz audio, sounds markedly cleaner than your onboard audio, and it comes with software that's just loaded up with features. It's got simulated 7.1 surround sound. It's got a footstep mode that actually works. It's got EQ and presets and voice changing. It even has its own external digital volume knob. It's bus powered over USB as well, so no power brick. This makes it ideal to throw in your bag for laptop use. And it sounds pretty legit. It even supports higher end, high impedance headphones up to 600 ohms, but it sounds great at low impedance mode as well. It pairs awesome with the HyperX Cloud headset, and you'd even be forgiven for thinking that they share the same logo. It only has a couple real drawbacks, actually. One being the need for its own software, and two being that it upholds Creative's track record of offering a mic monitor input or side tone, but it introduces lag so bad that it's not usable.
So here's the HyperX Cloud Alphas. These are going into the SoundblasterX G5. And here's a little bit of typing on those Cherry MX speeds. in the background for you. One thing that becomes really apparent here is that the levels are considerably lower than we saw using the Onboard. And sticking with the SoundblasterX G5, you are now listening to the Sennheiser Game One. To me, these levels look a little stronger out of the box. Looks a little fuller. Let's let them marinate for a sec. Noise floor looks really solid. And here we go with a little typing in the background. And now the Modmic 5 into the Creative Labs BlasterX G5. Let it marinate for some noise floor. Looks really, really clean. And here goes some MX speed typing in the background.
Now, to truly make the most of this unit, or any audio device for that matter, we have to take a minute to talk about how Windows handles audio devices, which is to say poorly. Now, despite Windows plug-and-play lifestyle, I have tried a lot of different audio devices on Windows 10, and I can tell you that not all of them behave the same. So there's two things you really have to make sure when you plug your audio device in. Number one, you have to go in and make sure that there is a default device set for the main audio of whatever that unit is. A lot of times it'll offer a second output that's used primarily for communication, and it'll have a lower bit rate than the actual main system. So make sure you have the right one selected as your default output and the correct one selected as your default communications output. This is clutch. You'll also want to make sure that you go in and configure that output. Certain units that do simulated 7.1 surround give you the option in Windows of clicking 7.1 surround and assigning that to that output. Some that I've used don't offer that option at all, and they will only let you select stereo. But in order to really reap the benefits of something like that, your unit may require you to go in and configure that output. So take a look at that. Now, you may have noticed that since the Creators Update, Windows 10 has added something to its audio menu called Spatial Sound. This comes in two flavors, either Windows Sonic, which is free, or Dolby Atmos Headphone, which costs like $15, or there's a free 30-day trial. These sound awesome when you're watching movies. It's kind of a no-brainer to turn these things on if you're gonna watch movies on your PC. Just make sure that your audio device, if it does its own separate simulated 7.1 processing, that you turn that off, because otherwise it'll process the audio twice. It'll be a garbled mess. So either let your audio device do the processing or let Windows Spatial Sound do the processing, not both at the same time. Definitely check this out for movie watching. As far as playing games, it was kind of a mixed bag. I haven't had a lot of time to get under the hood with it, so I'll probably do a more full review of these features in the near future. And that brings us to our next big price point and our heavyweight bout for the purposes of this video. We're talking about the $220 to $250 price range. Now, what I've done here is I picked a couple standouts that are PC gaming flavored that both attack this situation from a completely different angle. I know there's DACs and amps out there that can go into the hundreds and thousands of dollars, but we're not pushing a full-blown Dolby Atmos 7.1 surround system. We're PC gaming, so they need to be gaming flavored. I'm trying to keep it in perspective, and I know there's alternatives out there like Shit and Audio Engine, but for the purposes of this video, these are my two favorites. I'm gonna take them head to head right now. The first comes in at $220 to $230, depending on where you purchase. This is the Sennheiser GSX 1000 gaming amp. This guy is PC and Mac only. It kind of feels like it goes out of its way to exclude consoles. And despite only being 16-bit and 48 kilohertz, it is a beast on the features. Now, first off, it's damn sexy with its proximity activated touch panel and its smooth aluminum volume wheel. When it's sleeping, it dims and it just displays the volume level. Now, I've heard some reviewers talk about how the display or the buttons in the corner are a little dodgy and they don't always respond. I have yet to have that issue with this particular unit, which I purchased at retail. Pretty slim on connections here with just a mini USB port and a 3.5 input for your mic, your headphones, and your speaker system. This is bus powered over USB, so that means no wall brick, making this an ideal ride along for your laptop bag. It has 4 EQ presets: flat, gaming, which pulls all the bass out and really emphasizes footsteps, a music EQ, and a story mode. And this would be ideal for any kind of movie watching or any single player campaign, any gaming for that matter, outside competitive FPS. It also has a chat mix dial on the side, and it has one of my favorite features the world over. It has the ability to add side tone to any gaming headset with no lag. Amazing. But the real star of the show for this unit is Sennheiser's proprietary binaural rendering engine that honestly creates usable simulated 7.1 surround audio. It is incredibly immersive, and the best trick is that it does it without sacrificing the quality of the audio at all. There's no tinny sounding or poorly mixed audio here. This thing is just a beast. It just adds like an instant level of immersion to your favorite open world game. and it's flexible. You can tailor it. It has like 2 levels of reverb plus off, and you can also adjust the surround so that it emphasizes either the front, neutral, or rear. And it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. Depending on what game I was playing, I would work with a mix of features to get the setup that sounded best for me for that game. And when I was done, all I had to do is hold down one of the bars on one of the corners for a couple seconds, and it'll save that preset so I can recall it just by hitting one of the bars in the corners of the unit. This was also pretty cool for movie watching. You can really dial in some stuff that makes it sound like you're sitting in the middle of a big IMAX theater just by using that reverb control in conjunction with the surround. Though I gotta say, my favorite movie watching experience still goes to the Windows' own Spatial Sound. It's just in a league of its own. The surround aspect is even better when you made it to an open back headset that already has a pretty large soundstage, so it mates perfectly with the Sennheiser Game Ones that we talked about in the last video, both visually and from an audio standpoint. Music sounds good as well. It wasn't anything like over the top. It didn't absolutely knock my socks off. It does color the sound a little bit. It's not going to add like a ton of bass, but you can definitely tell that the bass is punched up a little bit here. For music listening, I would definitely stick to 2.0 and avoid any of the surround modes. They had a tendency to sound pretty weird. And another drawback of this unit, in addition to only being 16-bit, is that it's only going to power cans up to 150 ohms. I've heard reviewers say that they feel like it could push cans as high as 300 ohms, but I haven't tested it, so I can't really speak to it.
All right, now you're listening to the HyperX Cloud Alpha going directly into the GSX1000. This thing's levels look insane on the screen. Let's get some noise floor. Looks good, and some typing, see how background cancellation looks. Just insane levels. I imagine this is going to sound really hot. Now we got the Sennheiser Game One going directly into the Sennheiser GSX1000. These levels look really hot. I'm afraid if I got too loud with this thing, it's definitely going to clip. So I would probably wear the mic a little further away from my mouth than usual with this. Let's get some noise floor. Looks pretty good. Let's check out some noise canceling with the MX speeds. That'll do. And now running the Modmic 5 directly into the GSX. I did pull this mic a little further away this time as opposed to on the G5 test because everything we've seen out of the GSX 1000 seems like the mic input is a lot hotter. Let's check some noise floor. And let's get some background typing going on. And levels actually look pretty reserved on this.
Now, if this was the first interface that I had heard at this price point, given its ease of use and its flashy looks and its gamer-centric feature set, it probably would have been the last interface I ever bought for PC. But only a couple days before I got to Sennheiser, I had already heard this. This is the ARC from Mayflower Electronics. This is handmade here in the USA. It retails for $250 and it has a warranty of 10 years. And holy mother of God, I did not know PC gaming audio could sound this good. For full disclosure, this unit was provided on loan from Tyler at Mayflower. This is not for keepsies, though I can tell you I will definitely be purchasing one of these from my own, and I feel like that says a lot. With a closed back headset, the audio is clean and detailed and punchy, and it just feels like there's a lot of power behind it. It's hard to explain, but it's like sitting inside like a car audio system that you know is really high end and the guy's only running it at a quarter volume, but it just kind of gives that impression like a V8 engine just kind of at idle, like you just kind of feel like there's a lot more power behind it. It's really the only thing I can liken this to. I've never even had the volume on this thing over halfway, and I like the fact that it doesn't use the Windows system volume like seemingly every other audio device that I've owned does. There's simultaneously like a separation of different audio, but at the same time, it kind of all falls under the same overarching like sound character that makes you know that everything's in the same wheelhouse. It's seriously hard to explain. When you add in an open back headset like the Sennheiser Game One, it adds this shimmer and sparkle to the high end that I've only heard a handful of times in my life, and I've only heard it in a professional recording studio environment. It's like audio bliss. As I said before, I know there's audio options out there, like audiophile options that go into the thousands of dollars, but for being a PC gaming tailored product, paired with the Sennheiser Game One, this is flat out the best sounding audio I have ever had at my desk. You may have heard of Mayflower Electronics before due to their build out of the open source O2 ODAC. This sounds better than that. And it has a mic in, and a mic pass through, and an optical in for consoles, and RCA outs in the back for a powered speaker system that are auto sensing. and it'll power headphones of up to 600 ohms. It also has a DSP bass boost feature, which adds some really clean low end. I found this to be absolutely exhausting in the HyperX closed back headset because they're already really bass heavy. But in the open back Sennheiser Game Ones, it added some really clean low end back into the headset, but it didn't sacrifice any of the detail or shimmer on the high end, which made for the best music listening experience I've ever had at my desk also. It is worth noting here that whenever you engage the bass boost or come out of bass boost, there's a couple seconds while the unit gets its feet under itself and comes back on. Every reviewer has pointed this out. Most have pointed out that it's an annoyance. This doesn't bother me at all. If anything, it kind of adds to the character that this is a handmade device. Now, there's no software here, and it is driverless. So if you're using this over USB, you're going to get 24-bit 96 kilohertz. If you're using it over optical, you can push that to 24-bit 192 kilohertz. There's no flash here. We've seen this look before. It's very utilitarian, so it's not going to get anybody's attention on the desk. And it doesn't offer side tone. And it needs its own wall power, so portability is definitely going to be impacted by that. But what it does, which is provide clean audio in and out, it does very well. I've honestly spent over 2 weeks trying to decide which one of these is going to earn a permanent home on my desk. Let's take a listen to how the mic inputs sound.
All right, right now we are listening to the HyperX Cloud Alpha. This is going directly into the Mayflower ARC. And this mic is really, really close to my mouth right now. System volume, which is where you're going to want to control your mic input, is set to 100 in Windows. Let's get some noise floor. And let's see how those MX speeds sound with me talking over the top. All right, now with the Sennheiser Game One going directly into the Mayflower ARC, and I actually put some distance on the mic this time, so it's coming in a lot hotter than the HyperX. Let's get some noise floor, and let's see how we sound with a little bit of keystrokes in the background, and done. Rounding out the testing today, we've got the Modmic 5 going right into the Mayflower ARC, and yeah, we're about done. Let's get some noise floor and get a little background action. And I legitimately wish you guys could see the floor of my studio space right now. It is covered with headsets and wires, and it feels so good to do my last mic test.
So the Sennheiser really has some features I hold dear, specifically for social gaming. The idea of chat mix is great, and being able to add lag-free side tone to any headset is a huge plus, though it is less mission critical for me when I'm using an open-backed headphone and I can kind of hear the environment around me. And the surround sound is no joke. It adds a lot to games like The Division, Grand Theft Auto 5, Battlefield 1, and I love the fact that it's super portable. But it's really restrictive when it comes to being able to expand to high-end headsets down the road or high-end headphones down the road, and it didn't really blow me away in terms of music listening. Now, on the other hand, the Mayflower ARC paired with the Sennheiser Game One is just flat out the best audio experience I've had for gaming and music. And it sounds spectacular for movie watching too, because this pairs very well as an interface with Windows' new Spatial Sound options. Now, to drive this point home of how high quality this unit sounds, I have demoed this unit for 2 friends in my home, and both of them, halfway through their respective favorite songs, have stopped and asked me how they can get their hands on one for themselves. The Sennheiser did not elicit that reaction. Plus, the ARC's audio is so clean and detailed, it has even exposed flaws in my own audio mastering for my videos, and that makes it valuable as a studio tool as well. Coupled with the fact that this thing will power headphones up to 600 ohms, this leaves a wide open upgrade path if I want to go all the way down the rabbit hole with a super expensive audiophile headphone and an external mod mic setup. And that's as detailed as I can lay it out for you. Obviously, if you want to spend more money, you can. There's even options from Creative that go up to like $350, but those are 2 of my favorites. The real big question here for these 2 is how important is simulated 7.1 surround going to be to you? Only you're going to know your taste, your needs, and your budget. Again, everything I talked about in today's video will have affiliate links in the description below. If you'd like to grab your ARC directly from Mayflower, they are on pre-order right now, but because of that, they're offering a discount. So you can get on pre-order right now for $219 instead of the usual $249. That's a hell of a deal. I really want to hear from you guys in the comments. What did you think of this video? This was easily like the biggest topic that I've ever attempted to tackle, and I learned a truckload. I sincerely hope this was helpful. I hope you learned something. And that's it for this time. I'm Brian P. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that sub button, and until next time, stay up.